Sometimes your cat looks at you, not briefly, not casually, but for longer than feels normal, still, silent, unblinking, and it creates a strange feeling. Because it doesn't look like curiosity, and it doesn't look like affection. It feels intentional, almost as if your cat is watching you in a way you don't fully understand. Most people assume it means one of two things, hunger or judgment. But neither of those explanations go deep enough. Because cats don't hold eye contact without a reason. In the animal world, looking directly at someone is never neutral. It's communication. And when your cat stares at you like this, something is happening beneath the surface. Something quiet, subtle, easy to miss. This is a silent behavior. One that lives at the edge of attention, emotion, and awareness. And once you understand it, that stare will never feel the same again. When your cat stares at you, it's not random attention, it's a lock. A full alignment of perception. Cats don't spread their attention like humans do. They focus it, narrow it, stabilize it. And when that focus lands on you, your cat isn't just looking. He's holding you in awareness. This creates a subtle internal shift, a rise in alertness, not fear, not tension, but readiness. In cats, this state sits between two worlds, observation and action. They are not reacting, but they are not passive either. They are processing your movements, your breathing, your patterns, even the smallest changes. This is why the stare often feels intense, because it is. It's a moment where your cat's entire system is tuned into you, not emotionally like dogs do, but perceptually. Clean, precise, undistracted. And here's the important part. Cats don't do this for things that don't matter. If your cat locks attention onto you, you've become part of the environment that needs to be understood, not controlled, not judged, understood. In the wild, a fixed stare is rarely friendly. It's how predators track, how territory is assessed, how distance is measured. A direct gaze can signal pressure, control, intent. So when a cat looks at you like this, the instinctive interpretation would be tension. But inside a relationship, that same behavior transforms. It loses its edge and gains context. Your cat is not looking at you the way he would look at prey. He's not calculating movement, not preparing to act. Something else is happening. The gaze becomes sustained without escalation. No crouching, no tail tension, no forward drive, just stillness. That stillness is the difference. Because instinct pushes toward action, but relationship allows for pause. Your cat is holding the gaze without needing to resolve it. And that only happens when the environment feels predictable. Safe enough to observe without reacting. This is why the stare can feel strange. It carries the structure of instinct, but not the outcome. It's a behavior that sits between two worlds, what the body was designed to do, and what the relationship now allows. And in that space, the meaning changes. Cats don't maintain eye contact when they feel out of control. They break it. They look away. They reposition, because holding a gaze requires stability. So when your cat stares at you and doesn't interrupt that moment, he's not escalating. He's stable inside it. There's no urgency. No need to act. No pressure building. Just presence. This is what makes the stare feel different. It's not sharp. It's not aggressive. It's contained. A quiet form of control. Your cat is aware of you, fully but not overwhelmed by you. And that only happens when the nervous system is balanced. Too much stimulation, and the gaze breaks. Too little interest, and it never forms. This sits right in the middle. And here's the part most people miss. Cats don't stay in that state with environments they don't trust. They scan quickly, then disengage. But when they stay, when they hold that gaze, it means they're comfortable enough to remain present without needing to protect themselves. That's not tension. That's confidence in the moment. Cats don't depend on others the way dogs do. But that doesn't mean they're disconnected. Their connection is quieter, less obvious, but still very real. When your cat stares at you, something subtle can be happening. He's aligning. Not in an emotional, expressive way, but in a regulatory way. Cats are extremely sensitive to environmental states, and you are part of that environment. Your energy, your movement, your rhythm, all of it feeds into how your cat calibrates his own internal state. The stare is not just observation, it's a form of synchronization. Your cat is reading you, but also adjusting himself in relation to you. This is why the stare often appears in quiet moments, when nothing obvious is happening. No play, no feeding, no stimulation, just presence. Because co-regulation doesn't need action, it needs stillness. And in that stillness, your cat is doing something most people never notice. He's checking the emotional climate, not through touch, not through sound, but through attention, sustained, silent, precise. The way your cat looks at you doesn't stay the same over time, and that shift is rarely random. Sometimes the stare becomes shorter, less frequent, more fragmented. Other times it becomes sharper, more intense, harder to hold. Both changes matter, because the stare depends on one thing: internal balance. When a cat feels stable, the gaze is steady, soft, sustained. But when something shifts, in the environment, in routine, or in emotional consistency, the gaze adjusts. Not dramatically, but noticeably. Cats don't announce discomfort. They recalibrate. A quicker look, a faster break, more scanning, less stillness, or the opposite, a more fixed stare. Less blinking, more intensity, not connection, but control. That's the difference. The same behavior, looking, can come from two completely different states. One is regulated presence, the other is heightened vigilance. And to an untrained eye, they look identical. That's why context matters. The body, the timing, the environment. All of it shapes what that stare actually means. Your cat isn't just looking at you. He's showing you how he feels without moving at all. What feels like a simple stare is anything but simple. It's not boredom, not judgment, not randomness. It's a moment of awareness held in silence. Your cat isn't just looking at you. He's staying with you without needing to move, without needing to act. That kind of stillness doesn't come from disinterest. It comes from control, from balance, from being comfortable enough to remain present. And that's rare, because most of the time, animals don't stay still without a reason. They react, they shift, they disengage. But when your cat holds that gaze, he's choosing not to break the moment. And that choice is where the meaning lives. It means the environment is stable enough, predictable enough, safe enough, not perfect, but aligned. So the next time your cat looks at you like that, don't rush to interpret it. Pause. Notice how long it lasts. Notice how it feels. Notice what changes when you move. Because communication doesn't always come through action. Sometimes it comes through stillness. If this changed the way you see your cat, leave a like. It helps more people understand what animals are really doing. Subscribe if you want to keep decoding the silent behaviors most people never notice. And in the comments tell me, when your cat stares at you, what's happening in that moment? Thank you for being here.